Most people believe speed comes from effort. Do more. Think harder. Push longer. Hustle faster. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, this belief is not just wrong, it's backwards. You don't manifest faster by doing more actions from the same internal state. You manifest faster by becoming a different frequency before you act. Consciousness does not reward exhaustion, it responds to coherence. When someone keeps forcing outcomes from urgency, doubt, or emotional noise, they may move a lot, but they don't move far. Reality mirrors the signal, not the struggle. Speed in manifestation is not mechanical, it is vibrational. And vibration is about who you are being, not how much you are doing. A simple real-life example makes this obvious. Think about two people with the same goal: starting a business, changing careers, or improving relationships. One is frantic, constantly consuming information, chasing strategies, reacting to fear of missing out. The other feels calm, focused, oddly precise. They take fewer actions, but those actions land. Calls get returned. Doors open, right people appear. To the outside world, it looks like luck or coincidence. Internally, it's the quantum pulse at work. A coherent state creates a clear signal. A clear signal collapses probabilities faster. Consciousness moves first. Matter follows. This is why manifestation at the speed of consciousness feels effortless to those who understand it, and frustrating to those who don't. The field does not respond to desire alone. It responds to alignment between thought, emotion, and nervous system. When those are fragmented, the signal scatters like a flashlight. When they are aligned, the signal focuses like a laser. If this perspective is already reframing how you think about effort, productivity, and manifestation, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That small act of reciprocity supports content that goes deeper than surface techniques and helps keep this level of teaching available. Here is the key shift that changes everything. Acceleration happens when inner resistance disappears. When resistance drops, time compresses. Outcomes that once took years reorganize themselves around inspired action and clean timing. This is not magic. It is coherence in motion. And this is just the beginning. In the next step, we'll define exactly what the quantum pulse is, how to recognize when you're in it, and why it changes the field before you even take action. The quantum pulse is not emotion, motivation, or intensity. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, it is a state of coherence, when thought, emotion, body, and intention are aligned into a single signal. Desire alone does not accelerate reality. Desire without coherence actually slows things down because it carries tension, lack, and urgency inside it. The field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to how organized you are while wanting it. When coherence is present, the signal becomes clean, and clean signals travel fast. This is why some intentions seem to click instantly, while others drag on for years despite effort. A helpful metaphor is the difference between a flashlight and a laser. A flashlight spreads light everywhere. A laser concentrates it into one direction. Both use energy, but only one cuts through. Desire without coherence is like the flashlight, diffuse, emotional, inconsistent. Coherence is the laser, focused, calm, precise. In practical terms, this means that when your nervous system is regulated, your emotions are stable, and your mind is clear, your actions carry more impact. You don't need to repeat them. You don't need to chase. The field recognizes the signal faster because there's no internal contradiction confusing it. This is why people in coherence often experience sudden acceleration. A conversation happens at the right moment. An idea arrives fully formed. A decision feels obvious instead of stressful. These are not random events. They are indicators that the quantum pulse is active. And if this explanation is already helping you see why some efforts never moved while others shifted everything, pause for a second and support the work. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. That simple act of reciprocity helps this deeper, more precise content reach people who are ready to stop forcing reality and start aligning with it. The most important takeaway here is this: coherence always precedes speed. You don't build coherence by wanting more. You build it by reducing internal noise. When the noise drops, the pulse turns on naturally, and once the quantum pulse is active, something else changes immediately. Your perception sharpens. You start noticing opportunities, signals, and openings that were always there but invisible before. That's because acceleration doesn't start in action. It starts in perception. And that invisible engine is exactly what we'll unpack next. The invisible engine behind acceleration is not action. It is perception. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, reality does not present you with infinite possibilities all at once. Your nervous system and brain constantly filter what is relevant, what is visible, and what is ignored. This filtering process is what we can call the cut of probabilities. Out of countless potential outcomes, only a small set enters your awareness. And here is the critical point. The quality of that cut depends entirely on your internal state. When coherence is low, perception narrows. When coherence is high, perception widens, and more probabilities become available for collapse into experience. This explains why two people can be in the same environment and live in completely different realities. One walks past opportunities without noticing them. The other seems to stumble into the right conversation, the right idea, the right timing. It's not that the field favors one person. It's that attention selects differently. Attention is not neutral. It is directional energy. Where attention goes, probability follows. When attention is fragmented by worry, urgency, or emotional noise, it keeps selecting the same limited set of outcomes. When attention becomes stable and present, it begins to sample a richer field of options. A practical example makes this very real. Think about how often you've said, "I wish I had known this earlier." The information existed. The opportunity existed. What was missing was perceptual access. In coherence, the brain stops running survival loops and starts detecting patterns. You notice the sentence someone emphasizes. You feel the nudge to send a message now, not later. You connect dots faster. If this insight is already shifting how you understand luck, timing, and intuition, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. That simple act of reciprocity supports content that helps people see reality more clearly, not just think about it differently. Here's the deeper integration. Acceleration happens when perception updates before circumstances do. The moment you see differently, you choose differently. And when you choose differently, timelines reorganize quickly. The quantum pulse sharpens perception first, action second, results third. This is why forcing action without perceptual clarity rarely works. And it naturally leads to the next question. If perception determines which probabilities you access, what internal states expand that access, and which ones shut it down completely? That answer lives in emotional vibration, and it's where we go next. Certain internal states act like accelerators, others act like brakes. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, vibration is not emotion alone. It is the combined signature of emotion, nervous system tone, and mental posture. This is why manifestation doesn't respond equally to all positive feelings. Some states organize the system and sharpen the signal. Others scatter it. States that accelerate the collapse of probabilities share one trait: coherence without urgency, calm confidence, clean gratitude, present moment curiosity, quiet courage. These states tell the field and the signal is stable, the channel is clear. When that happens, probabilities don't need to be chased. They reorganize toward you. On the other side, there are states that reliably slow everything down, even when intentions are sincere. Urgency is the biggest one. Scarcity is another. Rumination, self-doubt, and emotional volatility fragment the signal. The field reads fragmentation as noise. A noisy signal doesn't collapse quickly, it disperses. This is why people can be highly motivated and still feel stuck for years. Their desire is real, but their internal state keeps broadcasting contradiction. They want change, but their body says danger. They want speed, but their emotions say lack. The field responds to the loudest message, not the most hopeful one. A practical way to diagnose your vibrational state is to notice how it feels before action. Accelerating states feel grounded and simple. You know what to do and it doesn't feel dramatic. Delaying states feel tense and overcharged. You feel rushed to act, explain, prove, or fix. For example, sending a message from calm clarity often gets a fast or a clean response. Sending the same message from urgency invites delay or confusion. The action may look identical on the surface, but the vibration behind it changes how quickly probabilities collapse. If this distinction is already giving you more self-awareness than years of effort ever did, take a second to like the video and subscribe. That small act of reciprocity helps keep this level of clarity alive on the channel. The deeper insight is this. Acceleration is less about adding high vibrations and more about removing conflicting ones. When fear drops, speed increases. When urgency dissolves, timing improves. This reframes inner work completely. You stop chasing emotional highs and start stabilizing emotional clarity, and now it's your turn to reflect. In the comments, share one state you noticed that consistently slows things down for you, and one state where things seem to move faster with less effort. That observation is not casual. It's the beginning of conscious control over your vibrational speed. Urgency feels productive, but it is one of the greatest saboteurs of conscious acceleration. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, urgency is not speed, it is contraction. When urgency dominates, the nervous system floods the body with stress chemistry, narrowing perception and collapsing the present moment. The mind feels sharp, but it is actually reactive. The body feels energized, but it is braced. In this state, actions multiply, yet results slow down. Why? Because urgency fragments coherence. It pushes action ahead of alignment, and the field responds to fragmentation with resistance, delays, and repetition. What makes urgency especially dangerous is that it becomes addictive. Adrenaline creates a sense of importance, motion, and control. Many people unconsciously equate being busy with being effective. Over time, urgency becomes identity. This is just how I am. The problem is that urgency always pulls attention into the future. What must happen next? What could go wrong? What can't wait? The present moment shrinks. And when the present shrinks, the quantum pulse shuts off. Speed disappears not because you slowed down, but because you lost access to expanded perception. A clear real-life example is decision-making. Under urgency, people rush to send messages, commit to plans, or fix problems immediately. Later, they realize the timing was off, the words were wrong, or the action created more work. The same decision, made from calm coherence, would have taken less effort and produced a cleaner outcome. Urgency doesn't just distort action, it distorts timing. And timing is everything when it comes to collapsing probabilities quickly. The fastest path is almost never the most rushed one. The shift that changes everything is learning to replace urgency with precision. Precision feels slower at first, but it accelerates outcomes. It comes from pausing just long enough to re-enter coherence before acting. This is not procrastination, it's alignment. When urgency drops, perception widens, intuition sharpens, and action becomes inspired instead of compulsive. And this is where true speed returns, not as pressure, but as flow. The moment urgency loses authority, consciousness regains velocity. The pulse protocol exists for one reason: to restore coherence fast enough that the field can respond before old patterns take over. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, you don't need long rituals to activate manifestation. You need clean alignment in real time. This protocol works because it intervenes at the exact point where urgency would normally hijack perception. 90 seconds is enough to let stress chemistry peak and pass without being fed by mental stories. When that chemistry clears, coherence naturally returns. And when coherence returns, the quantum pulse turns on. Step 1 is pause without collapsing. You don't stop life. You stop the rush. Wherever you are, interrupt unnecessary movement. Let the body become still enough to be felt. Step 2 is long exhale. Inhale gently, then exhale a little longer, 2 or 3 cycles. This single adjustment tells the nervous system, no immediate threat. Step 3 is chest attention. Bring awareness out of the head and into the center of the chest. Not to feel emotion, but to stabilize attention. Already, most people notice a subtle slowing of internal time. That's the field opening. Step 4 is peripheral expansion. Instead of narrowing attention to the problem, widen it. Notice sounds, space, edges of vision. This signals safety and increases perceptual bandwidth. Step 5 is coherent intention. Ask one clean question. What is the most aligned next action available right now? Not the fastest fix, not the biggest move, the most coherent one. Often it's surprisingly small. Wait 10 minutes, send one sentence, take one step. This is how probabilities collapse quickly. Clarity replaces force. In real life, this looks simple and powerful. Before replying to a triggering email, you run the protocol and choose to wait, and the conversation resolves itself. In a business decision, you pause, widen the now, and realize the better option is obvious. In relationships, one regulated sentence changes everything. These are not coincidences. They are field responses to coherence. Repeat the protocol, and the nervous system learns a new association. Pressure leads to presence, not panic. Once that association forms, acceleration becomes natural. And when coherence is consistent, something remarkable follows. The field starts responding with timing, signals, and synchronicities that feel almost intelligent. That's exactly where we're headed next. Synchronicity is not randomness dressed up as meaning. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, synchronicity is what happens when coherence meets timing. When the quantum pulse is active, perception sharpens, attention stabilizes, and the nervous system is no longer broadcasting urgency or lack. In that state, the field doesn't need to send miracles. It simply reorganizes probability pathways so that encounters happen at the exact moment they can be received. The meeting feels improbable only because it could not have occurred from your previous state. Synchronicity is not magic. It is state-dependent access to intersections that already existed. This is why synchronicities tend to cluster. Once someone enters coherence, one coincidence seems to lead to another. A name comes to mind, and that person calls. A question is held lightly, and the answer appears in a conversation. An obstacle dissolves without force. What changed was not the external world, it was availability. In incoherence, the mind is too noisy to notice subtle openings. In coherence, perception widens, and the system recognizes the right moment to act or not act. Synchronicity is not passive. It requires presence. You still move, but you move with timing instead of against it. A grounded way to distinguish real synchronicity from fantasy is to observe its emotional tone. Genuine synchronicity arrives with calm clarity, not excitement or desperation. It feels obvious, not dramatic. There is no rush to grab it. There is a quiet yes. For example, someone thinking calmly about a new direction might overhear a specific opportunity being discussed nearby. Or a delayed response suddenly makes sense when the right information arrives. These moments don't demand belief, they invite alignment. And alignment is what keeps the quantum pulse active long enough for acceleration to continue. The deeper principle is this. The field responds when your state makes you receivable. Urgency blocks reception, coherence opens it. Synchronicities are not rewards, and they are feedback. They signal that your internal signal is clean enough for timing to matter, and this naturally leads to the next realization. There is a guidance system even faster than synchronicity, one that doesn't rely on external signs at all. It's internal, immediate, and available before proof appears. That system is intuition, and learning to recognize it is the next level of conscious acceleration. Intuition is often misunderstood as a mystical gift, but from the perspective of scientific spirituality, intuition is fast information processed below conscious reasoning. It is perception without narration. When coherence is present, the nervous system, Emotional field and cognition are aligned enough to register signals before the rational mind assembles evidence. This is why intuition feels immediate and simple. There is no internal debate, no emotional charge, just a quiet sense of knowing. Intuition is not a guess. It is recognition happening faster than logic can keep up. What most people call intuition, however, is often impulse. And the difference between the two is critical. Impulse carries urgency, fear, excitement, or pressure. Intuition carries calm clarity. Impulse says, act now or you'll miss it. Intuition says, this is aligned when you're ready. For example, an impulsive decision feels tense in the body and loud in the mind. An intuitive decision feels grounded, even if it leads to something challenging. This distinction alone saves people years of misaligned action. The quantum pulse sharpens intuition because it removes emotional noise that distorts the signal. In real life, intuition often shows up as a subtle nudge. Send this message, take this route, wait instead of pushing, say one honest sentence instead of 10 explanations. These signals are small, but their timing is precise. Someone following intuition may appear slow or indecisive to others, yet outcomes unfold rapidly afterward. That's because intuition operates before probability collapses visibly. It guides you to the intersection before the crowd arrives. This is why intuition feels like knowing without proof. The proof comes later, as synchronicity or momentum. Here's the key integration. Intuition is not something you develop by thinking harder. It emerges naturally when coherence is sustained. The calmer and more regulated your internal state, the faster and cleaner intuitive information becomes. You don't chase intuition, you make space for it. And when intuition is expressed through action, not ignored or overanalyzed, acceleration multiplies. But intuition alone is not the final engine. Without movement, it fades into frustration. The next step reveals what turns intuitive knowing into real-world results. Inspired action. The moment where consciousness moves reality forward decisively. Inspired action is where the quantum pulse becomes tangible. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, our inspired action is not about doing something big. It's about doing the right small thing at the right moment. When the pulse gives you a yes, it doesn't arrive as excitement or pressure. It arrives as clarity. The body feels settled. The mind feels quiet. And the next step feels obvious, even if it's uncomfortable. This is how acceleration actually works. Reality doesn't need grand gestures. It needs precise movement aligned with timing. Inspired action is consciousness moving matter without friction. One of the most important rules here is this: inspired action is immediate but minimal. The longer you wait, the louder the analytical mind becomes. And the louder it gets, the more the signal gets distorted. That's why inspired action is often something you can do in 5 minutes or less. Send the message, make the call, write the first paragraph, say no, say yes, stand up and move. These actions may look insignificant, but they carry disproportionate impact because they are taken while coherence is still active. Speed comes from acting before the mind negotiates you back into the old timeline. A clear real-life example makes this obvious. Someone feels a calm inner nudge to reach out to a specific person, not because they should, but because it feels right. If they act immediately, a door opens. If they wait, doubt creeps in, timing shifts, and the opportunity dissolves. Or consider someone who feels guided to pause instead of pushing through exhaustion. That pause leads to clarity, better decisions, and faster progress afterward. Inspired action is not always movement forward. Sometimes it's strategic stillness. The key is alignment, not momentum. Here's the deeper truth. Inspired action bypasses resistance because it doesn't fight reality. It cooperates with it. You are not trying to bend the field. You are stepping where the field is already open. This is why inspired action often feels strangely easy in execution, even if it leads to big change. And once you start trusting this process, something shifts internally. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start recognizing, "I already know." But this brings a new challenge. When inspired action begins to work, the mind and the environment often react. Doubt, confusion, and external noise increase. Understanding that reaction, and not losing the pulse because of it, is the next critical step. The test of speed always comes right after acceleration begins. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, when the quantum pulse starts working, when intuition sharpens, inspired actions land, and synchronicities appear, the system enters a brief phase of reorganization. During this phase, things can feel confusing, noisy, or even chaotic. Old doubts resurface, external opinions increase, timing feels slightly off. This is not a sign that alignment was lost. It is a sign that the old structure is dissolving while the new one is still stabilizing. Speed, paradoxically, passes through confusion before clarity locks in. Most people misinterpret this moment and slow themselves down. They think, I must have done something wrong, or maybe this wasn't alignment after all. But what's really happening is a recalibration of reference points. The nervous system is adjusting to a higher level of coherence and faster feedback from reality. The mind, used to control and prediction, temporarily loses dominance. That loss feels like uncertainty. In truth, it's flexibility. The fastest timelines often feel unstable at first because they are not yet familiar. Familiarity is comforting, but it is also what keeps people stuck. A practical example helps ground this. Someone takes inspired action, leaves a job, starts a project, sets a boundary, and for a short time, nothing seems clear. Responses are delayed. Information is incomplete. Others question the decision. This is the test. Do you rush to fix the discomfort and fall back into urgency? Or do you stay coherent, reduce unnecessary action, and let timing reorganize? Those who stay present notice that clarity returns suddenly and decisively. What felt confusing snaps into order. Acceleration resumes, often stronger than before. The delay was not a setback. It was a compression phase. This is where reflection becomes essential. Think back to moments in your life when things felt messiest right before a breakthrough. In the comments, share one experience where confusion preceded clarity, or where confusion made you retreat. That awareness turns experience into intelligence, because once you recognize the test of speed, it loses its power to derail you. And with that understanding, you're ready for the final integration, learning how to sustain the quantum pulse consistently, without depending on mood, motivation, or perfect conditions. Sustaining the quantum pulse is not about staying high or emotionally positive. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, true sustainment is state stability, not mood control. Mood fluctuates. Energy rises and falls. Circumstances change. But coherence can remain available beneath all of that. People lose the pulse when they tie it to how they feel instead of how they regulate. The field does not respond to happiness. It responds to order. When your internal system stays ordered, even on bad days, the signal remains clean, and acceleration continues quietly in the background. This is why depending on motivation is unreliable. Motivation is emotional fuel, and emotional fuel burns fast. What sustains the pulse is rhythm, simple, repeatable anchors that bring you back into coherence regardless of mood. One in the morning to set the tone, one during the day to reset, one at night to integrate. These don't need to be dramatic practices. 60 seconds of breath regulation, one honest check-in with the body, one moment of asking, am I acting from urgency or alignment right now? These micro anchors teach the nervous system that coherence is not an event, it's a default. A practical example helps here. Imagine waking up tired, unmotivated, even irritated. Instead of trying to raise your vibration, you run the protocol lightly. Long exhale, chest attention, peripheral awareness. No demand to feel good, just order. You choose one coherent action. Drink water, delay a reaction, focus on one task. The pulse stabilizes without enthusiasm, and later, without forcing it, momentum returns. This is how people who seem consistent are actually operating. They are not emotionally superior. They are regulatorily trained. The key realization is this: consistency beats intensity every time. When the pulse is sustained, synchronicities don't feel dramatic anymore. They feel normal. Intuition becomes quieter but more reliable. Action becomes cleaner, and life stops swinging wildly between on and off. Before we move into the final integration, pause and reflect. In the comments, share what most often knocks you out of coherence: fatigue, doubt, external pressure, or emotional swings. Naming the destabilizer is the first step to making the pulse independent of mood. The 7-day quantum pulse ritual is not a challenge designed to impress the mind. It is a training sequence designed to educate the nervous system. From the perspective of scientific spirituality, 7 days is enough to establish a new reference point, not by forcing belief, but by generating evidence. The objective is simple: teach your system to recognize coherence as normal and urgency as optional. Each day requires only a few minutes, embedded into real life. No withdrawal from the world, no spiritual performance, just precise interaction with the field, repeated consistently. Here is the checklist. Days 1 and 2, awareness and regulation. Your task is to notice urgency the moment it appears and apply the pulse protocol once per day. Long exhale, chest attention, peripheral awareness. No fixing, just order. Days 3 and 4, inspired microaction. After coherence, take one small action that feels clean and obvious. 5 minutes is enough. A message, a pause, a boundary, a first step. Days 5 and 6, pressure integration. Use the protocol specifically when something feels tight, confusing, or emotionally charged. This is where acceleration is stabilized. Day 7, evidence review. Ask only: what moved faster with less effort? What felt different about timing? Evidence trains the body better than belief ever could. What most people notice by day 7 is subtle, but powerful. Fewer actions create more results. Decisions feel simpler. Delays resolve themselves. Synchronicities feel natural instead of surprising. This is not because you controlled reality. It's because you stopped interfering with timing. If this framework has brought clarity and value so far, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. That act of reciprocity helps this level of grounded, high-signal content continue reaching people who are ready to work with consciousness responsibly, not emotionally. And now, the cinematic truth to close this journey: manifestation does not happen at the speed of effort. It happens at the speed of coherence. When your internal signal is clean, reality responds without resistance. You stop chasing outcomes and start meeting them at intersections already prepared for you. The quantum pulse was never something you needed to activate. It was something you needed to stop blocking. When consciousness is aligned, the field doesn't hesitate. And when the field doesn't hesitate, time itself seems to move with you instead of against you.